Welcome to Semi-Sages of the Pages, the writing podcast where we're not sure where we're going, but we're having an adventure.
This podcast contains adult themes and language at times.
At times? What fun is that?
And discretion is advised.
Hey guys, we are the Semi-Sages of the Pages here, and today we're talking all about querying. Yay!
Ooh. I mean, should we say yay?
Not yay? It's more of a boo. It's
more of a general sigh. Like,
yeah. like 2020 in general. Querying in 2020.
Mine is more like,
oh, rollercoaster sigh from Morgan. I suppose we should introduce ourselves. So this is Molly.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Sarah. Teresa,
Did I cut out again? Okay, I'm Teresa.
Why does it only happen when you say your name?
I don't know. Whatever it is. Yeah, Teresa, when Teresa says her name, her microphone is just like, nah. We don't need to hear that.
Better name. A new name.
Oh, no.
Okay, well, that was funny.
If you have ideas for renaming Teresa, make sure to comment on our social media.
Oh, Lord. we should create a channel for that.
As we said earlier, we're going to talk to you guys today about querying, but we're not going to attempt to tell you how to query today.
No how-tos. There's enough on that.
Right.
We're not going to tell you how to write a query letter. We're not going to tell you how to write a synopsis. What are we going to talk about today?
The psychology of surviving the trenches.
Yep. So a lot of this
we work it out together.
As a lot of our episodes are opinions, this one is a very, very heavy opinion episode about our journey. You know, our tagline is, we don't know where we're going, but we're on an adventure. And sometimes adventures are difficult and painful. And so we are honoring that part of our journey here and talking about our experience with querying, pros and cons. So who wants to start us off as Molly toasts us with her non-wine?
Molly wants
okay.
to start.
Molly can start. Molly's happy to do that. So it is right now as we're recording this is November. I started querying back in May, end of May. And when I started, I put out 3 or 4 queries at the same time. And I got back some rejections very quick. And at that point in time, I was like, okay, maybe I've done something wrong. So I actually kind of paused myself for about a month and a half. And I completely rewrote my first chapter because I realized I got some feedback from some new people and realized there was actually a big problem with my first chapter. So I did a little querying, stopped, rated my chapter, then did probably 3 or 4 more queries in late June, early July. And these ones took more time to get back. So I knew I had done something right. But I actually haven't even gotten feedback from everyone yet. Because I had a couple of people ask me for more information and more chapters and stuff like that. So I'm still on the line for a couple of those. And because I have a strange brain, and it's hard for me to like send out more things until I already have the first things back, which is wrong. That's not how you should approach querying. I know that. I know I should send out more stuff, and I know I should be trying more things, and I know I should be sending out my book more, and I haven't sent out my book hardly any place. I know that, but this is part of the journey, and I'm being honest, and I haven't sent out new queries since then. And part of it has also been intentional we'll talk probably about this later, but the querying landscape has not been favorable this summer and fall. So there was an intentional decision to not query there for a little bit as well. But that's my journey. I know I need to get off my butt and do more, but it's just mentally difficult to do that because I know you deal with rejection. It's going to happen. I just don't want to do it right now.
This is part of Molly's experience, but one thing I think I'd like to add is every time you send out a single query, you have to research the agent, all of their upcoming projects, get completely familiar with their books, understand how your book fits into their query list. So it's not like, if you're querying well, it's not like you sit down and crank out a query a day, even though in my experience, all my friends and family expect me to. Oh, your book is done. It's fantastic. Your synopsis is good. The basis of your query is good. Why aren't you querying 12 people a day? Well, I haven't researched the agent. I don't know the details of how they work with clients. I'm looking for a partnership, so I'm not cranking out my queries. And that I find to be really draining because I'm connecting, I'm getting excited about that person's work, I'm getting involved, and then maybe they offer a full request and it's a month and a half and I still don't know, and then when do you probe that you're not in their face or, not, I don't know. I feel like that part of querying, I don't know what your experience is, but that part of querying people didn't really prepare me for. It was, you have to research this agent, you have to know this agent, but I didn't realize how much time and then how much emotional investment was involved in each agent. And for me, that has been, I think, the hardest part of being in the querying trenches.
Morgan, while we're here, do you want to talk about what your journey has been?
Mine's so similar to yours, right? So query designers to about 8 agents, got about 5 rejections, have 2 full requests out still. They probably, who knows?
And how many months have you been at it?
I started around the same time as you. I'm not as good with calendaring and keeping track of the days. They meld into months, but you and I started designers 2 weeks before you did. So it's really, really close.
For reference, it's kind of good to start with a partner.
Oh, yes.
You can commiserate together.
Okay, the first thing I would say to you is query with your buddy. Molly and I spent a ridiculous amount on the phone saying, help me analyze this rejection letter and what does it really mean? And how come I haven't heard? And I just got my partial, just went to a full request. Let's pretend, celebrate like we're, like the house is bought or something. And then my new book, I've only queried 5 times. I have a full request out on that. 2 really kind personalized rejection letters from top agents, and then waiting for 2 more. So that's where I'm at in my process.
This is such a fascinating industry to me because you are told, do your research, don't do a blanket email out to 600 agents all at the same time. Go slow, send it out in little pockets of 5 or 10, and then if you get rejections, then tweak your query. But you a lot of times don't hear anything. And so, a lot of these agents will say, if you don't hear anything, it's a no. And you're like, well, but how long? Are we talking 2 weeks? Are we talking a year?
And 2 agents, top agents, one at Andrea Brown, really, really good agents. And they were way out of my league. And I was like, I'm going to query them anyway. And they say, oh, if you don't hear back from me, it's a no. So when I got a letter back from them before I even opened it, I was like, yes! And I got so excited. And I opened it up and it was a personalized rejection that said, please keep querying. We just, had all the reasons. But I was never expecting that. I had never heard a story like that before, that if the agent says we won't get back to you, like if you don't hear from us, it's a no. And then they actually sent a nice, and it was very kind, and like it was so great that they spent the time to do that, and I love them so much for it. But before I opened it, I definitely counted chickens that hadn't hatched.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Molly.
What's also rough is like, so a lot of places will say like, if you don't hear from me within a lot of agents will say like, if you don't hear from me within a certain time period, then it's a no. And a lot of the time period that a common one is like 2 or 3 months. But there's a lot that can happen. There's a lot that can happen in 2 or 3 months. That's a huge time. And then you get some agents that will give you feedback 12 hours. So as soon as you send that query out, you're just like, oh, no one can see me. You are just kind of on edge, and you are like, because you don't know, you're going to hear back today, tomorrow, in 3 months. And because of the pandemic, a lot of agents are being quite honest and saying, it's taking us longer. It's taking us longer. So, I mean, I had someone ask me for a partial, and she said, like, this was back in late June, early July, and she was quite upfront. And she said, listen, I will read this. I will get back to you. You will get feedback from me, but I am inundated. It's going to take me months to do this. And she was very upfront with it. And, it's November now, and I still haven't heard back from her. But I know I'm in the inbox. I know when you used, what is it? Query tracker. Yeah, you know that it's there, because when they reject it, you get a thing telling you that they reject it. So you're still there. But it's just, you just wait. And the amount of time you wait doesn't necessarily mean that it's a rejection. I found that one out because I actually did go back and I asked someone in late September. I was like, okay, she's had it for this amount of time. It was a partial. Maybe this is a no. And I did finally, send the email, and I asked, and she said, no, I'm still interested. It's just been busy, which was great. And some other stuff happened in that email too, but which was great. But I want to, like, you don't know, and there's just like this time when you're in limbo. You're in writing limbo, and that can be difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then the other thing too is they always say, go and work on another project. Well, okay, great. So do you work on the sequel, even though that book hasn't been picked up?
Did they say no to that?
Yeah.
Every piece of advice I've ever seen is you absolutely do not write a sequel until after you're picked up and have worked with an editor.
Which makes sense.
Because if they drastically change your plot and you've got your sequel written.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. However, one thing that I kind of regret with Warehouse Dreams is that it got picked up. When I started querying for Warehouse Dreams, I started working on River City Widows. Went through the edits of Warehouse Dreams, kept working on River City Widows. River City Widows is now with my publisher. And I'm getting my reviews back for Warehouse Dreams, and they're all like, where's the sequel? And I'm like, it's coming soon. But that's one thing that
as soon as you get picked up, you should start your sequel.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
I almost fiercely disagree with the advice.
Oh, okay.
I mean, granted, so to be clear, I gave up on querying years ago. I thought it was a waste of my time. Because I have so many stories in me. And, when I envision some of my books, I've got three books, or, the sequel already kind of lined up in my brain. And for me, I want to get it all out. And if it means drastic edits to the sequel because of what happened in the first, fine. But at least the sequel's written. At least I have a general direction. Because, like Teresa said, it can take a lot. Writing books takes time. And I don't know, if I were to have someone tell me like, oh, you should wait until your first book gets picked up to write the sequel. If you intend to write a sequel. Because not all books do take sequels, or will have a sequel to them. I don't know. Who are they to tell you don't write your second book?
I think it's a matter of that advice comes from a place of odds and publishing, right? So if you write a sequel, you can't sell the sequel until you sold the first book. If you write a different book, right, a different book one, if it's a sequel or standalone, then now you've doubled your chances for someone picking you up because you can query both. I think that's what it is. It's not, if you don't want to publish or you don't want to publish traditionally or it's not what you want, like don't listen to that. Or you really want to write your sequel. I think the advice truly comes from a place of how do you increase your odds? You increase your odds by writing more books, and you can't query a sequel.
Yeah, and I think it comes from people who are still trying to get agents and trying to go with the big 5 publisher. Like, I think that's very specific advice to people who have a very specific trajectory for what they're hoping for or dreaming for. I think I think that's very different. If you're not probably I'm sure after you have an agent, that's not even true. I think it's getting the agent, trying to get into the big 5. And I think that's probably the only, obviously.
Yeah. Do we want to talk, Teresa, you talked briefly about your querying experience, but I don't know if you want to go into detail because you also did querying for not just agents, but for small presses.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah, so I kind of took a shotgun approach because I wasn't, for me personally, I was not convinced in the agent and the big 5. I've read the statistics. I know the statistics of the chances of getting an agent, regardless of how good your book is. And the amount of work, as Morgan mentioned, the amount of work that goes into trying to get an agent. And then once you get an agent, then you got to get a book deal out of it. So just kind of looking at what I wanted my path to be for writing, I knew I didn't want to wait years and years and years for hoping, and that's me personally. So I sent out to a couple of agents. I did my homework. I did my research. I did all the query letters and blah 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 blah. And kind of was like, if it happens, it happens. Cool. If not, I'm not worrying about it. And then I did research on small presses. Sent out to a couple of small presses. And then I kind of did a little bit on kind of these hybrid presses as well. And I ended up getting two small presses that were interested in it. And I went with S&H and it's been wonderful with them. And one of the reasons I love S&H so much is because of the speed. I got I think it was early January when she sent me the contract, and I thought about it for a little while, accepted it late February, early March-ish. And then Warehouse Dreams was out in late July. I'll take it. So that's pretty good. So, because again, statistically, we know that if your best chance of generating revenue from writing books is having a lot of books. So for me, going through a small press that will let me do books quickly was very, very important. And even if I got that agent and I got that book deal, I'm still not able to push out books very quickly. And I think that's where going indie has such a huge advantage.
Yeah. For reference, do you want to tell our listeners what is the time frame if you get an agent and then a book deal? How long are you looking at?
Usually 2 years from that book.
2 years. 2 years. Because you've got to get your agent, then they have to get you an editor, then they have to get you a publisher, then you get your illustrator, right? And then
yeah. Well,
and then you go through all the edits of the publisher too.
Right.
Yep.
So it's 2 years from when it gets picked up with a book deal, not from when you get an agent. And the other part of it is just because you get an agent doesn't mean you're going to get a book deal.
Nope.
And if you are looking for agents, be sure you research the heck out of the contract you sign with them. That is something
especially
to be very aware of.
Especially with media rights, what Sarah's saying. You really want to check. A lot of people are losing money on audiobook deals and international media rights. So,
and quite a few agents will also ensure that they get the rights to money off your book for life. As long as your book is out there, they are getting revenue from your book. So have a lawyer, have a friend, have several people look at your contract before you sign anything, publisher or agent. Just be very aware and do your research. Like, it's so exciting. It is so exciting when you get an acceptance from an agent or from a publisher, but do your research and be sure you you are familiar with every line in your contract.
Yes. So my question for you guys, because we've all either done querying before or are currently querying, what's the number one thing that you do for your kind of mental health while you're going through querying? How do you go and stay sane through the emotional roller coaster that is waiting, getting an email, is the email a rejection and acceptance, a form rejection, a personalized rejection? Oh yeah, there's a whole thing. It's not just if you get rejected, it's how you get rejected. I guess, do you guys have any, I guess tips is the wrong way to say it, but when and if you're going through that process, how did you go and keep yourself grounded?
I decided I didn't want to query again.
But getting whether you're doing a query for an agent, for a publisher, or if you're in the stage where I am, where you're reaching out to get reviews from strangers, sending out the manuscript and being like, hey, do you mind reading this and putting it up on Goodreads? Here's the link. There's still that rejection that's there and that waiting that's there. And sometimes I'll be like, sorry, I don't have the time, or this really wasn't my thing. Even though you did the research into them and, made your email or your query to them as personalized as possible, that still hurts. And so what I did when I was doing querying, which was definitely the bigger hurts of the lot, and this is something I do whenever I get some sort of negative response, is I put it down and I go for a walk. And just putting it down, going out, getting fresh air, getting my little endorphins up from walking, and just being grateful for my immediacy and knowing like, okay, this one person that I reached out to didn't like it or didn't have time for it. And that's okay. But having that moment of just getting away from it is huge for me. That's how I deal with it. Or it's really how I deal with any kind of negativity, is just separating and then processing on the walk, like not forgetting about it, of course, but just getting the fresh air and breathing is huge. And it's tough right now because we're all cooped up, we're all in quarantine or whatever. We can't distract ourselves as well as we used to be able to prior to 2020. I want to bring that into this discussion because that was something we were all talking about before. 2020 sucks. And we all have that. And querying or reaching out for reviews sucks right now. And so if you're not feeling it, that's okay. Make sure, like we talked about with editing and dealing with critique groups, there's going to be times when you get negative feedback. And negative feedback right now on top of 2020, it's okay to just step away. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to go those 2 months or whatever, 2 weeks, to just put it down and just remember yourself and what matters. And that's my preaching moment for the day. But, that's just remember yourself during this time.
Sarah, thank you for saying that, because I've been kind of down on myself lately because in the back of my head, I'm like, I should query more. I know I should query more. But I haven't been able to get myself to do it. And, I really appreciate you saying that. It makes me feel, I was kind of getting down on myself and feeling like, Molly, oh God, I hate this advice when you see it on the internet, which is like, if you want your dreams and you need to go out and do, the only thing preventing you from achieving your dreams is just doing stuff. And, sometimes you get down on yourself because you're like, man, I wish I could just do that thing. I wish I could find the time to send out more queries. I wish I could do that, but it's not always that easy. And so I really, appreciate that kind of acknowledgement that mentally it can be hard and that it is okay to sometimes take a break and focus on other stuff.
When we started this podcast, we recorded in February, and then we've been talking about it January, December-ish. And we had, and we still have, a lot of plans for this podcast and kind of for where we're going. And we also have and had a lot of plans for us as well. And where, I think if we were to talk to ourselves back in February, we would be telling ourselves something very different than we are now. Back in February, we were all like, we got this. Just focus. Let's just focus. We can do it. The only thing keeping us from our dreams is us. And now we're, dealing with the pandemic and, the mental health problems, and that I think a lot of people are dealing with. I'm having breakdowns about once a week now. And so it is okay to say, I can't do that. And I'm going to let that go. Oh my God, I'm tearing up. I can't do that. And I'm going to let that go. I'm sorry, for a little while.
And you don't have to let it go forever.
No, you don't. It's just right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I was texting Teresa a little before this that last night I had a major emotional breakdown. I had a shit ton of stuff happen in the last month, personal stuff. And at the same time, I just released Animal Court. I'm trying my darndest to get Foreign and Domestic Affairs redone and a million other things, right? And last night I was like, I'm going to freaking finish Foreign and Domestic Affairs if it kills me because I want this thing done. And I sat down and it all hit me at once. Everything hit me at once. And I was just sitting there crying my eyes out. And at one point I was like, just get your shit together and finish this. And it was like 9:30 and I was like, what the heck is wrong with me? And I was crying my eyes out doing this. And I was like, just finish this. But then I had that sort of Morgan aha moment where I was like, I can't. And that's okay. And I was like, what am I doing to myself right now? And how much more harmful is it if I keep trying to push right now? And so I put it down and I went to bed at like 9:45 because I was like, you know what? I just need to sleep right now. I just need to let myself freaking sleep. And, woke up in the morning and I was like, all right, let's do this. And was right back and ready to go. And then I read through this morning what I was trying to work on last night. And it was a mess. It was a freaking mess because, of course, my head and my heart weren't there. And so in me pushing myself beyond the bleeding knuckle point was just too much. And as a result, my work suffered from it. And that's not okay. So, one of my biggest challenges of 2020 is to recognize within myself that it's okay to take a day off. It's okay to watch a movie. It's okay to play video games. That every waking minute doesn't have to be dedicated to my dreams. So convincing myself to take that break has been huge.
Sarah, that is so in line. I mean, as you all know, my October was terrifying. I'm lucky that people and animals and things are alive. And so lots of just survival in October. And it brings me back to exactly what you're saying. And to go back to the querying trenches question, I have to get my energy right before I can query. I'm querying an agent, a business partner. I'm querying hopefully a friend. I'm looking for someone who's going to build me and I'm going to build them and we're going to complete each other in our Jerry Maguire craziness, you know? And I ended up starting a query with that. I haven't heard back from her, but like she wanted to do a horse rescue and I rescue horses. And this new book I have is kind of about horses in middle grade. And I kind of started with that, and I felt good about that. I was like, even if she rejects me, like I feel like I'm offering like from like a genuine place. And when I send the queries like that, I do get personalized feedback, and then when I get even the rejection letters and I read them, they're so kind. They are so kind. Like the agents are like saying my name and talking about the book and how they hope that it, you know, they're really busy with their clients, or they're not, you know, they have a client that's writing a book too close to mine, or one of the rejections was like, with the pandemic, I just can't take anymore and I'm going to close to queries, but please consider me next time. And I try to like hold that there are people who are going through the same thing I am, you know, and it's not personal. Like they're trying to send me back as much love and respect. And man, there are 2 agents I will never query again because their rejection letters were so hollow and they were not the kind of people I would ever want to work with. And then I've had like 4 or 5 from people that I'm like, man, I'm querying my next book to them because they invite you to do that at the end. They're super classy. You can feel the warmth and care that they have for the business, you know? And so that part of querying, I think, can be really valuable in the sense that it can teach you who you actually would want to work with and like maybe who wouldn't fit with you. So I guess it's a screening process on our end also. I think it's not helpful if we always look at it as we're the ones being rejected. Like, we can reject them too.
And so to answer your question about keeping, like just to kind of recap, to keep your positivity during the querying process, I think for me, I get the best advice from people when they say it's like meeting a best friend or a romantic partner and you don't want to rush into it. And the best things are worth waiting for. And it's going to be a better story because I want to find an agent. I want somebody to take me and be my, you know, and have this great story together. And so that's the path I've set myself on. And I guess if I get too tired of it, I'll try a different route, you know, I'll go, there's plenty of other paths. And the more books I get done, that doesn't keep me from publishing them myself later. So it's not like I don't have a plan B. You know, I think that's the other thing to remember when you're querying. You can always choose a smaller presser. You can always become an indie author.
It's very important. We get not obsessed, but we get like in this mental, like, I have to find an agent. I have to get an agent. I have to get an agent. It's important to remember, like, it's better to have no agent than a bad one. Just like a romantic partner. It's better to be alone than have a bad romantic partner.
Absolutely. And I really want to second that and second what Morgan said about how you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And that they work for you, your agent. You are not their employee. You, at the end of the day, are paying them. So remember that. They are your employee. Yeah, you're reaching out to find them right now, but once you've secured one, keep that in mind and remember that they're not the only agent out there. And if they're not working for you, end it.
Molly and I'm just going to kind of share, I think. Molly and I have we're the 2 that are headed for the agent and the dream of the big 5 and all that stuff. So we've kind of queried together and began our process together. And I have also been able to help fine tune our queries and our synopsis and get closer and closer. And in August, we were able to go to a conference where we basically got full requests from every agent we talked to. And that was like amazing. Like, we came off of the conference like, oh my gosh, we're doing it. We get it. And we had this high and things were so exciting. And then
nothing.
Then it was just like partial request here, full request here, like haven't got back to us, or, or I ended up not sending to 2 of the agents because I did more research and was like, no, not for me. So I think for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but for me personally, the closer I get and the more I have a book that I believe in, like my second book right now, I really believe in it. Like I had so much fun writing it, and my beta readers just, so a couple of them have read it 2 or 3 times now, and it just feels totally different than my first novel did. And with that, though, it's actually been more psychologically difficult instead of easier. So I always thought, like, when I hit the book that I was like, this one's good. It's right. It's good. I thought, well, that'll feel so good and it'll be so easy. No, opposite, totally opposite. It feels like more stressful. And I don't know if you ladies have experienced that or what you think that comes from, but I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, closer to your heart. So you care more when you get feedback about it.
Right.
And
that was a big part of the reason.
Oh, go ahead.
That was a big part of the reason why I stopped querying however many years ago and decided to go indie, was because I was getting these extremely personalized messages from these publishers and agents saying, you know what, this is a really good book. We just don't have the time for it right now. Or, you know what, this is a great novel. Holy cow, we hope you have sequels to this or whatever. And I was like, so if you think it's a great book,
why
aren't you either giving me other options or saying, hey, return to me? Or some did. Some said, hey, in X amount of time, try again. And I was like, no. Well, you're telling me no now. So why should I check back in with you? But I'm also extremely fiercely independent. And this is for me talking about my experiences. And, your experiences may be totally different, or your opinions, of course. Please feel free to disagree with me. I just got so frustrated with those personalized messages that it was like, you know what? If all of you are telling me that this is a good book and none of you are willing to publish it, then I'm going to publish it myself. And that's what I did. And of course, it's gone through several rewrites and re-edits since then, but now I'm extremely happy and proud of where it is. But I just became so tired of that emotional roller coaster of, oh, they liked it. And then reading in the second half of the email of, but wait, they're not taking it? That was just crap. Honestly, I mean, thank you to those publishers and to those agents who took the time to do a personalized message to me. But I would have almost rather have just gotten a, hey, sorry.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Thanks, but no thanks. Because unless it's like, we're not accepting your manuscript because this, and this was wrong with it, that's different. Because then that's constructive. Whereas if it's, this is great, but we just don't have room for it at this time, that's not constructive. And that's just an emotional roller coaster. Because leading up to, hey, we thought this book was great, but we don't have time for it, totally negates everything in the front. And all I'm going to focus on is the, but we're not taking it now. And for me, I couldn't do that anymore. Because I spent like 2 years trying to get Animal Court published. And I was just over it.
I was just going to dissent a little bit from Sarah here. Like, I totally get what you're saying. But for me, it's not... I get it, and I disagree a little bit. So I disagree in terms of like, oh, why are you telling me this? Like, I appreciate when they tell me something, even if they can't take it. Like, I appreciate them telling me that.
I love it.
Because to me, I get it. It's not personal. We only have so much, each person can only do so much. So even if you like a project and you think it's worthy of being published, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can help get it published. Or that individual person can help get it published, whether it's an agent or a small press. So, I get it. And I appreciate the time that it takes them to send off the message. The frustrating bit is when you get that personalized feedback and they tell you that it's good and they tell you like, I just can't take it because of XYZ reasons, or we don't have the time for it or whatever. The frustrating part of that on my end is like, well, what do I do with that? Or if they, the worst one is like, I like your book, but I'm just not a good fit. Like, to me, that's like, what does that mean? Does that mean I did wrong when I was researching? Does it mean that you have a similar book to this? Does this mean I should change something? Does it mean I shouldn't change anything? That was a frustrating bit for me. But
my experience was when they had a similar book to mine, they said that.
Yeah.
That was my last rejection. And she specifically said, she's like, I have a client and the book is just too close.
Each agent is different, right?
Yeah.
Like some send personalized, some say nothing, some send form rejection, some you never know. Everybody's different.
But I do think, I think, Molly, part of that is like, what are they getting? Between 400 and 600 queries a month?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
And they're and this is why Teresa's right. If you think about it and you really want to know for sure that you're going to be successful, you better consider looking at different publishing author, because at that volume, they're saying yes to so few books and they're weighing you so heavily against your client list of like, oh, I already have an author who does that. So I can't rep something that's going to compete this because I have to sell my current client's book and I can't sell, the new book, right? So I think they're holding so many things in tension as far as marketability goes, their ability to represent you well, their ability to keep selling for their current clients, which, when I get repped, that's the main thing I want my agent to do is take care of the clients they already have. And I think all of that goes into what I think is a really difficult job because they've got to screen thousands and thousands of queries every year, pull out the ones they think they can believe in, put their heart and time into it. And if they fail, if they can't sell it, they get nothing. They don't get the joy of writing the novel. They don't get the pride of saying that they wrote a book. They get nothing.
And they don't make money until you make money.
That's right.
Make sure
and so
that's the case.
If they are a reputable agent, they don't make money until you make money, and don't sign a different contract than that.
Exactly.
Which means sometimes what you're not a right fit for me means I don't know an editor who would take you right now, and if I can't get you to an editor or a publisher, I can't rep you because I have to feed my family. So even though I think your book is amazing, nobody wants sci-fi right now. So I'm not in a position in 2020 to risk it because everything's super tight in the publishing industry. So I can only rep things I know I can sell. And I think that's a hard reality right now for agents. And I don't think it's their fault. Like, I think we have to be very compassionate and supportive of the difficult position they're in as well, I think.
Human.
Ooh, look at me like
we're all human.
Yeah.
It's all good points. What do you guys think about whether or not querying can be addicting to some people? Think about it like, you're playing the lottery. So, the lottery gets up to, $1 billion and you go, oh, I'm going to go get a lottery ticket. And then you're walking out with a lottery ticket and you're dreaming of like, here's what I'm going to do with the money when I win. And then, you lose and you're like, oh, okay, that sucked. But for some personalities, they get caught in that dream.
I will say, I don't think I am addicted because it's too hard at times, but I can see it. And especially like when you have something that's like a bigger request and it's out and it's been out for a while.
Yep.
Like for example, I had one that was out for 3 or 4 months and I knew that I needed to check in with the agent and I needed to ask, but I didn't want to because I had built it up in my head that it was actually a rejection. I hadn't heard from them for a while and it was a reject. Like in my head, I was like, it's a rejection. This is also a reason don't self-reject. But in my head, it's a rejection. And I didn't want to reach back out to her because as long as I didn't reach back out to her, the hope was still alive.
I have 2 of those.
The hope is still alive as long as I didn't reach out. because like I said, in my head, I was like, I'm going to reach out and she's going to tell me, nope, not interested. And I actually I did reach out and she was still interested. So don't self-reject. And she did appreciate the reminder. Well, I hope she said she did. But it's just one of those things of like that holding on to hope. I definitely understand, Teresa, from what you've said.
I see where you're coming from, and I'm sure that's a reality for some people. But from my limited experience of the people that I'm close to that are in the trenches right now, I would say it's more triggering than addictive.
See that too.
And I think there's, I think that is probably
more common.
Yeah.
I wonder if for some personalities it's kind of a phase of, and now I'm just talking, I wonder if it's kind of a phase of the development of querying. You kind of get past the, the pain of being rejected, and then you move into, for some personalities, kind of that next phase of, I got a query. It has to happen. This has to happen. And okay, cool. I got rejected. No worries. Moving on to the next phase. And I got really close there, and I really equate it to gambling. Playing the slots and, being like, okay, I got close that one time. Okay, it didn't happen, but maybe next time it's going to. Like I like to play craps, and people a lot of times will be like, oh, a 7 hasn't come up in forever, therefore it's about to come up. No, it's not. It's just the same statistical chance of it coming up every single time.
I think there's some differences that the audience can hold on to. And I think Lissa Price, who's the author of the Stardust series, was really clear about this. And I think she was right in my experience. She said pretty much unequivocally that by your between 3 and 7 queries, if your novel is working or not by the type of feedback that you get, if you're getting feedback or not, I've only queried 2 books, but I can tell you the feedback is drastically different in the 2 books.
I want to add a caveat to that. And the caveats, a couple of caveats. One caveat is that is assuming you did your research right.
Bingo.
And you're querying the right people, and your query materials are also good. So if you query the wrong people, you're not going to get feedback even if your book is good. Your book could be good and your query material is bad, and you could not be getting good responses. But on the other hand, like, I do agree with you. Like, when I, did my first round of queries, I got, garden variety silence, and I did get one personalized feedback, which did help me. And then I realized, oh, my first chapter was wrong. There was a lot of things wrong with it. And then I fixed it. And then after that, my feedback went through the roof. Not just, I didn't always necessarily get an acceptance. I mean, I haven't gotten an agent yet, but the rate of return on people asking for more, or at least giving personalized rejection, went higher once you figure that out.
And them telling you exactly why they're rejecting, like, here are the 3 reasons, or, I really considered it. I mean, that totally, for me, that it was like day and night difference.
It's just difficult to be able to tell, like, what did you get wrong? Did you get your book wrong? Did you get the query wrong? Did you get the personalization wrong? Are you querying the wrong person? Is your book just not marketable at this time? How do you decide if you're not getting that feedback and you want to change something? That's difficult to try to figure out what is the root of the problem.
Right. And that's what I was kind of getting at with my experience, was that they were saying, oh, this is great. Oh, come back, talk to us later. But they were never saying what was off. And so it was personalized to an extent, but the why was always missing.
Your feedback that you're getting from agents, it's different for every person.
Yeah.
Everyone is different. You don't know what you're going to get. You might have a nice interaction with one person, and you don't know. You don't know.
Yep. And that's why the psychology of the trenches is so depressing and difficult, I think, and triggering.
I over my years, I probably interviewed 1,000 people for various positions at this point. And this is terrible to say, and I may not want to say it. Sometimes I'm not in a good place to do an interview, and I have to focus, and I have to be aware of myself too, and acknowledge to myself, okay, refocus, pay attention, take good notes, just in case I am not in a good mental place for that one. And it's not the candidate's fault at all. It's me. It's not you, it's me. And I think sometimes that happens with agents too, where, they're like, oh, I don't feel like doing this, but okay, let me go through 10, let me read 10 queries. And it's like, oh, all 10 of them suck. It's not you, it's them. They were just not in a good place.
And again, we're all human. Everyone in the publishing industry, it's easy to forget that, you send out this query and you're sending it out to, inboxes and query tracker or query manager. And it's easy to forget that there is a human on the other side of that, a human with a family and a profession. And sometimes the agenting is their second job. And, they're trying to, make money as well. And, on top of that, they're the small presses everything is filled with people. And those people have lives, and those people have days where they're not feeling great, days where they're just trying to get ends to meet, days where they, something happens in their personal life. And it's okay. It's okay. They're people too.
So that kind of brings us back to like why you choose to be in the trenches, because that seems to be the key thing that is, kind of holding our conversation together. Like, what is it? I mean, I think if you're really struggling psychologically with why you choose to be in the querying trenches, there's no problem stepping out and doing indie or going through a private press, or like maybe it would be good to talk about, or just pausing. Yeah. Taking a month away from it, working on your next book, or your next project. Getting fun in the writing, because the writing is the fun part, right? For me. So like when I'm down in the querying, I go work on a brand new project, a fun project, But maybe it would be helpful for our listeners to hear about why each of us chose to either stay in the trenches, or when it's time, what was your moment of aha, like I need to step out of the trenches,
Okay, I'll go. I think, and again, I kind of talked about this. I think a lot of it was speed. I wanted to get my books out there. And then I know myself, and I emotionally, I just didn't want to go through it. I just didn't. I don't want to invite that back in again. And I probably will have to. And I'm just talking about querying for a novel. Like short stories, I query short stories all the time. And it's like, rejection. Okay, moving on. That doesn't really bother me very much. But I got so emotionally invested when I was querying that, and maybe this is just 2020 talking, I just don't want to do it again. I don't.
I discovered, and mostly in this year, how it's so much easier. Well, let me say that again. It's not easier to go indie. It's not. And it's not. If anyone says it's easier to go indie, I don't know. Like it's different. And that's the thing.
It's not easier to go small press easier.
It's a whole different set of challenges. Oh no, you're good. It's a whole different set of challenges. And, if it's one of those things, and we've kind of talked about it in previous episodes before, where, take a step back before you make any major decision to do an agent or to go indie or what have you. What are you able to do? Because if you're an insane person like myself and you want to do it all, then do it all. But if you're not, a extreme independent person like myself, reach out to people, find those agents, find, people to help you with every step of the way, because indie is hard. Doing indie correctly is hard. Any one of us could right now type up a 10,000 word, that's pretty short, 10,000 word novella, pop it up on Amazon and call it a day. You could. Would it be good? Probably not. It takes a village to put a book together. And the steps for doing indie are very similar to going through an agent and going through a publisher. It's just you are the one driving it all. You are the one finding all the different resources and building those resources and connections and network. So going indie isn't necessarily easier. It's just a different set of challenges. And my moment where I was like, you know what, I'm over this, was when, oh God, how old am I now? 8 years ago, when I found out that you didn't have to pay through the nose anymore to do indie. Because that used to be the thing. It used to be extremely costly, thousands of dollars, to just get your book into book format. And now, there's so many free resources available. The landscape for indie has changed dramatically, and there are a lot more resources available. So for me, that was a big thing, was just realizing, holy shit, I can do this myself. That was, for me, the pushing point of realizing I don't have to wait on agents. I don't have to wait on the big five. I can do this myself. But that was my journey, and that works for me. And so, that's a big part of all of this, is that we're talking from our perspectives and what we've gone through, in hopes that if you feel a connection to these things too, you realize that you're not alone in this. Because there are thousands of authors going through the exact same or similar situations of frustration, of being stuck in the trenches, which is really the best way to say it. It's hard. This is a very difficult hobby/career choice we're all making. And it's so dependent on your fortitude. And because, I could have just as easily given up 8 years ago and been like, you know what, this is way too much work. Querying, way too much work. Doing it myself, way too much work, because holy crap, it's a lot of work either way. But, having that fortitude and understanding, like, yes, this is hard, but we're going to get through this. Yes, this is hard, and it's okay to take a break. Having that, and I consider that a part of fortitude as well, as realizing when it's okay to take a break. That's the best thing to just remember of all of this, of all of our situations, is just having that strength to realize, yes, I need to keep pushing. Yes, it's okay to take a break. That was kind of my realization, or a part of my journey as well, still, of what's going on through all of this.
I know for me, I'm choosing to stay in the query trenches, because part of my thing is I want that partnership. I want that help. I don't want to have to design the bus and maintain the bus and drive the bus and figure out where to drive the bus and pick up the passengers and collect the fees from the passengers. I don't want to have to do all of that. That makes my head feel like it's going to explode.
And yell at the passengers when they don't pay the fees.
Yeah, and get the passengers to review their trip on the bus. Not that, like, even as a traditionally published agent, there's a lot of those, like, things that you have to do, but you get help in a lot of it. And, I want, at least right now, I want to focus on the writing aspect. I am, however, in this moment, like, I'll jump back into it soon. But I'm taking a couple of months break. I needed a little bit of a mental break. There was too much going on in my personal life. I've still got some outstanding queries, which are fine. If I hear back, great, awesome. But I'm taking a little bit of a mental break from sending more out right now. And I'm just writing. I'm trying to finish a different project. And I'm trying to just focus my energy on that, which makes me happy right now. So we'll figure out how to jump back into querying after I'm done with that.
So wherever you are in the query trenches listeners, we, I think, understand, and we hope you feel supported. And whatever you end up doing, as long as, echoing Sarah, as long as it's good for your mental health, like, then, and it feels good to you, then it's right. And we're excited and we support you. And just remember, like, you're not alone, and, you know, your stories matter. And, you know, writing is a wonderful, creative, exciting endeavor. And, like, we hope that, you know, you don't let the stress of however you bring that writing to the world stop your creativity.
Yeah. And I think I want to just say, I think this episode is a virtual hug to Seven Sages, because, you know, we're all recording this from our home, but also a virtual hug to everybody out there in the trenches. You know, we're there one way or another. We're there with you, and we feel you, and it sucks and it's hard, but, you know, consider this our hug to you.
I think that's the perfect way to end.
I think so too.
Please check us out at semisagesofthepages.com.
And we're always on Facebook, Semi-Sages of the Pages.
We've got a great pop-in discussion over on Discord, so be sure to join us there.
And you can check out our Twitter at @semi_of. Or if you don't want to hang out on social media, you want to drop us a line and offer comments or corrections, you can email us semisages@gmail.com. And of course, if you like us, go ahead and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast listening device. If you don't like us, I'm not sure why you listened to that whole episode. But
take those negative attributes and put them in your characters.
Yeah. I'm really not sure why you would listen to a whole episode if you don't like us. But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and not liking us. What, Molly?
I don't know how that happens, but like it's not, you know, if you listen to the last like however many minutes and you're like, oh, this is awful. I'm like, why did you do that then? Anyway, everyone have a lovely day. Thank you for listening to this episode of Semi-Sages of the Pages. Music used in the introduction was the song 5 Armies by Kevin MacLeod, which you can find at incomptech.com. It is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0, which can be found at creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0. Whew, that's a wrap.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize that this is the point in the podcast where my cat decides to poop in the background. Happens almost every time we record.
Usually it's at the beginning, though.
Right.
This is the
She's like,
beginning.
oh, mom's doing something? Oh, excuse me. I need to make a deposit.
You realize
Every
that's gonna be at the end of one of these episodes, right? That's gonna be the cutscene.
I love our cutscenes. They're my favorite part.
She decided not to. I'm okay with that.